Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome along to lesson 66. This is a long lesson, so buckle up. And I wanted at the beginning, we always just sort of settle in. And this morning I felt very called to share. So there's this little thing I've had up in my door for many years that was given to me once when I opened a yoga studio. And it simply reads, "There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside." And that's by Shel Silverstein. And really, this is the reminder of our inner wisdom, of Sophia within us all, the Holy Spirit within us all, that speaks all day long, and that the guidance is always there, if we listen to it. What am I to do next? What's my next right step? What's my next move? Should I go this way or that way? And ask the questions and pause and then listen. And then the second thing I did this morning was pulled a card for whoever's watching this today. And I got Nematona. This is a goddess, and it's about making sacred space. Create an altar or visit a power place to connect with the divine. So if you don't already have an altar in your home, it's a really beautiful thing to create, just with a candle, maybe a picture of some loved ones, or maybe a deity that's important to you. Or maybe you could keep your Course in Miracles book on it if you have a Course in Miracles book, or a plant, or whatever, but it's just a space that when you look at it, it brings you into a Zen space within yourself and has you connect within. Okay, so we'll make our statement to the universe. We begin this day in gratitude. We open our hearts and we surrender to love. We ask love to lead the way through the minutes and the hours of this new day. We welcome joy, fun, and abundant prosperity. We recognize that all encounters are wholesome and that all experiences can be met with a peaceful heart that is anchored in the truth that we are one, we are love, and that we are free. And we release these words, and so we let it be. So let's dive into lesson 66. My happiness and my function are one. You have surely noticed an emphasis throughout our recent lessons on the connection between fulfilling your function and achieving happiness. This is because you do not really see the connection, yet there is more than just a connection between them. They are the same. Their forms are different, but their content is completely one. The ego does constant battle with the inner wisdom, or with the Holy Spirit, on the fundamental question of what your function is. So the ego always has its own agenda. It is not a two-way battle. The ego attacks and the Holy Spirit does not respond. She knows what your function is, or it knows what your function is. It knows that this is your happiness. And in order to achieve that happiness, we have to be in this forgiveness mode. And the ego always seems to thrive on conflict and adversary and, just having something to get its teeth stuck into. Now, remember that the ego in truth does not exist. However, we all have patterning and programming, and that's what we're speaking of. So today we will try to go past this wholly meaningless battle and arrive at the truth about your function. We will not engage in senseless arguments about what it is, and we will not become hopelessly involved in defining happiness and determining the means for achieving it. We will not indulge the ego by listening to its attacks on truth. We will merely be glad that we can find out what truth is. So our longer practice period today has at its purpose your acceptance of the fact that not only is there a very real connection between the function God gave you and your happiness. And remember, we came here to light up the world. And if we're not lighting up the world, we're not knowing our happiness. God gave you and your happiness, but that they are actually identical. The function that God gave you and your happiness. Sorry, I'm all muddled up here. God gives you only happiness. Therefore, the function he gave you must be happiness, even if it appears to be different. Today's exercises are an attempt to go beyond these differences in appearance and recognize a common content where it exists in truth. Begin the 10 to 15 minute practice period by reviewing these thoughts. Love gives me only happiness. Love has given my function to me. Therefore, my function must be happiness. Or in the book it has, God gives me only happiness. God has given my function to me. Therefore, my function must be happiness. And being the light and showing up as the light brings us happiness. You know, making that decision to be a shiny, happy person. So try to see the logic in this sequence, even if you do not yet accept the conclusion. Okay, so like a lot of this course, you may not fully get it, you may not fully understand it, but we're going to try to see the logic. It is only if the first two thoughts are wrong that the conclusion could be false. So let us then think about the premises for a while as we are practicing. The first premise is that God gives you only happiness, that love gives you only happiness, that source, that the universe gives you only happiness. So we have to open our hearts to this and be willing to accept this. This could be false, of course, but in order to be false, it is necessary to define God as something it is not. Love cannot give evil, and what is not happiness is evil. Now, I think I've shared before, when I see this word evil, there's a part of me sort of retracts, and I've often had difficulty with it, or at least I used to. And a teacher of mine said, if you look at it backwards, you know, it's live backwards. So we're living backwards. You know, we're not living in our happiness and our joy and the truth who we are. So evil is live backwards. So living backwards, not living forwards, not living in a straightforward manner. God cannot give what it does not have, and it cannot have what it is not. Unless God gives you only happiness, it must be evil. And it is this definition of it that you are believing if you do not accept the first premise. And the first premise is that God is love and that God gives you only happiness. The second premise is that God has given you your function. And we have seen that there are only two parts of your mind. One is ruled by the ego and is made up of illusions. So remember, even though we talk about the ego, it doesn't exist. It's an illusion. The other is the home of the Holy Spirit, of the divine inner wisdom of Sophia, where truth abides. There is no other guides but these to choose between. No other outcomes possible as a result of your choice, but the fear that the ego always engenders and the love that the Holy Spirit always offers to replace it. So we've got a fearful outcome if we follow the ego. We've got a happy outcome if we follow our inner wisdom, our beautiful God-given guide within ourselves. Thus, it must be that your function is established by God through its voice, or is made by the ego, which you have made to replace it. Now remember, you didn't consciously make this. This is all the things that you have learned since you came into a body. Which is true. Unless God gave your function to you, it must be the gift of the ego. Does the ego really have gifts to give, being itself an illusion and offering only the illusion of gifts? Think about this during the longer practice period today. Think also about the many forms of illusion of your function Think also about the many forms the illusion of your function has taken in your mind, and the many ways in which you tried to find salvation under the ego's guidance. And I know I have chased so many things and chased so many tails, and I looked for God in a sea of alcohol. I looked for God in sex. I looked for God in TK Maxx. I've looked for God in so many places and tried to find peace, food being another one. Well, the question is, did you find it? Well, no, I didn't. Were you happy? No. Did they bring you peace? So just begin to look at your own habits and the things that you have done to try and find peace. We need great honesty today. Remember the outcomes fairly and consider also whether it was ever reasonable to expect happiness from anything the ego ever proposed. Yet the ego is the only alternative to the Holy Spirit's voice. So we've got a bunch of crazy thoughts that we can listen to, or we've got the voice for God within us. You will listen to the madness or hear the truth. Try to make this choice as you think about the premises on which our conclusion rests. We can share in this conclusion, but in no other. For God itself shares it with us. Today's idea is another giant stride in the perception of the same as the same and the different as different. On one side stands all illusions. All truth stands on the other. Let us try today to realize that only the truth is true. In the shorter practice periods, which would be most helpful today if undertaken twice an hour, this form of the application is suggested. My happiness and my function are one, because God has given me both. It will not take more than a minute and probably less to repeat these words slowly and think about them a little while as you say them. And this is the path to peace. This is the way to peace. Recognizing that your happiness and your function are one, because God has given you both. So we're going to take a couple of minutes meditating on this. You can take more time yourself later on and remembering it on the hour. But overall, I'd say we've spent close on 15 minutes here with this lesson. Let's just pause now, gently close the eyes down, settle into this holy moment, this holy instant, and know that your happiness and your function are one. You're here to be happy. You're here to spread happiness, to be that extension of love. And this is a gift given you. And it lies within you to tap into this beautiful happiness. When you're ready, gently opening your eyes, perhaps having a stretch. And I would encourage you to do that mind search today and just notice all the things that you have used to try and find happiness and peace, even all the places you have gone in search of it. And just realize that it lies within. From my heart to yours, have a blessed day.